Alright, now the first thing we'll talk about are the author roles. There's 3 types of roles in the author application, and when I started out as a tech writer at that software company, first using author, my manager came up to me and was like, so we're going to go to author training in a couple weeks, and you're going to be the designer and administrator. And I was like, that sounds great. I have no idea what you're talking about. So hopefully by the end of these slides you'll understand what we're talking about there in case someone walks up to you and says the same thing. So those 3 roles are going to be the author, the designer, and the administrator. And when you learn about these 3 roles and then you take a look at the author interface, the interface starts to make a little bit more sense to you. Alright, so that first role is the author role. And we're all probably very familiar with the author role. The author role is designed to create new content and reuse existing content. They're the ones who will be using styles, templates, and structure in order to create content and publish documents. Alright. Now the designer role is responsible for assisting the author's role. The designer is there to support the author in that they create styles, they create templates, they will set up the relationships among the objects that authors are using, and they are responsible for the modifying and the management of any of your output templates or publishing templates, in other words. So the designers are basically those architects that go in and set up the styles and set up the templates, which the authors will then use to create their content. The designer's main role is to enforce consistency. And the way you enforce consistency is to set up styles and templates that your authors will use. This way, when any author publishes documents from AuthorIt, all of those documents publish with the same look and feel. We don't want any surprises in the publishing process. So the designers are really the enforcers of our standards and ensuring consistency across all of our documentation. Alright, now that third role is the administrator role. The administrators are there to support our designers and our authors. They're responsible for setting up the security model for the AuthorIt application. They will set up the users, they'll set up the groups, they'll set up something called variables, and they're basically responsible for the database. Alright, so if anything's going on with database connectivity, you need a new user set up, you need a new group set up, then the administrator is the person that you would contact. Now, depending on the size of your team, the people playing these roles may change. Let's say you're a small tech pubs group of 5 people. Well, if that's the case, then you probably have people who are both authors and designers, or authors and administrators, or a variation of all 3. Let's say you are an AuthorIt implementation of 25 to 50 users. Well, if that's the case, the majority of those people will be playing the authoring role, and a select few people will be designers and administrators. Those designers and administrators may also be authors. However, their main responsibility inside of AuthorIt is to make sure that authors are equipped with the proper styles and templates and structure. Alright, now we want to segregate our designers and administrators from our authors because there's security associated with each one of those roles. Someone who has administrator level security basically has the security to go in and be a designer and an author. So you wouldn't want to give that role to just anybody. You would want to give it to the primary person who will be responsible for your security and database setup, and perhaps a backup or two. You wouldn't want to give just everybody administrator responsibilities, for example, because let's say an author decides one day they want to change some publishing standards, or they want to change the security rights associated with the user. Well, if they were set up as an administrator, they could go ahead and make those changes. And again, that does not lead to consistency. That does not lead to our standard published documents, so we don't want to start enforcing that practice. So if you are building an authorate team, what you'll want to do is evaluate the people that are going to be on that team. Decide who's going to play these roles. And again, the designer and the administrator, they may also be authors or backup authors. However, not all authors should be designers and administrators as well. Now, if we take a look at the flow of control of these various roles inside of authorate, we'll see that administrators really have the most control in the application because they have the most security rights available for that role, just because it's inherent to the role that they're playing in the library. And then we move up to the designers and the authors. You can also take a look at this inverted pyramid as our support structure. Our administrators are responsible for laying that foundation where they are setting up security, they're setting up our database, they're setting up permissions, users, groups, and so on. They are there to support both our designers and authors. Our next level is our designer group. They are there to support our authors. They're there to make the author's life as easy as possible and to enforce consistency and standardization inside of your documents. So their primary responsibility, again, is to create and modify any templates, styles, reuse strategies, and basically be the information architects of our authorate system. Now, our authors are there, again, to use the structure that our designers have set up. They are beholden to the rules that the administrators have set up inside of the library, and their primary responsibilities are to create and manage their content. Now, a third way that you could take a look at this inverted pyramid is an implementation. What are the steps in an authorate implementation? Well, if you start from the bottom and go up, you can kind of see what you need to start with. You need to start off with the creation of a library and users and groups. Next stage of the implementation is to design your styles, templates, media objects, reuse strategies, so that when your authors log into that library, they have a user they can log in as, there's security associated with that user, and then they have templates to use, styles to use, and reuse strategies. So if you're just starting out with authorate and you are building that team, again, take a look at your team, designate each individual in one of these three roles, and some individuals may play multiple hats there. And then when you are designing your implementation strategy, you'll start off using this exact structure from the bottom up. Perform your administrative tasks, then perform your designer tasks, and then your authors can come in and start performing those authoring tasks. All right, so this pyramid, very many uses for it here.